Have you ever noticed how there is a strange discomfort in silence? Not the external silence, but the other. The one that happens when there is no longer enough noise to distract you from yourself. Maybe that's why you're always surrounded by voices, screens, notifications, tasks. You don't just move for productivity, you protect yourself from the break. Because in a pause, something emerges. And what emerges almost always is what you spent your whole life trying to silence. Carl Jung said that what you avoid looking inside yourself, it becomes destiny. And maybe that destiny is starting to call you. You feel tired, but you don't know why. You feel like you're overwhelmed, but you can't stop. You feel like you have everything, but you feel nothing. It's because the noise outside is no longer enough to drown out the noise inside. Silence is scary because it doesn't lie. He doesn't hide it. It brings you face to face with your rawest truth. And this truth is simple but difficult to accept. You have been living far from yourself. It's been good for everyone. It's been working well, has maintained the image, but deep down you no longer recognize yourself. You miss something, but he doesn't know what it is. Or worse, you know, but you're afraid to admit it, because admitting it would have consequences, maybe changes, maybe loneliness, perhaps ruptures with everything that currently supports the version you have built. But there comes a point where continuing to lie to yourself hurts more than starting over. And it is at this point that silence begins to stop being an enemy, and it becomes a portal. Silence does not judge you. He just gives it back. Give back everything you tried to hide, everything you repressed to please, everything you lost trying to look right. That's why he's scary, because it shows. And once seen, you can't unsee it. You can pretend to others, can adapt to the environment. He may even seem like someone balanced, productive, happy. But faced with silence, or you dive in, or you live running away from yourself for the rest of your life. Have you ever noticed how much of your energy goes into trying to be understood? You try to explain what you feel, but you feel like no one really listens. You justify your choices, but they always seem wrong to someone. You adapt, you mold, you reconfigure, and still it's not enough. This is where the first silence is born, the one that starts when you decide, finally, stop explaining yourself. Carl Jung said that the process of individuation, returning to the truth of who you are, begins with letting go of the need for approval. You spent so much time trying to be understood, who forgot what it's like to be whole. The explanation became a survival tool. You have learned that if you do not justify yourself, you will be misunderstood, that if you don't seem nice enough, you'll be rejected, which, if it is not clear all the time, it will be left aside. But all of this comes from an ancient fear, the fear of not deserving love if it is not perfectly decipherable. And love doesn't work like that. Whoever truly loves you doesn't require translation. Whoever truly sees you doesn't need an instruction manual. But you've spent so much time surrounded by people who love your mask, who forgot that there can be a space where you are accepted without having to open your chest to pieces. This first silence is radical, because he doesn't scream, he just refuses to beg for understanding. It's the moment you choose to stop defending yourself, to be convinced, to adapt all the time. You start to accept that not everyone will understand, not everyone will like it, not everyone will stay. And that's okay, because your peace can no longer depend on the effort to be understood. It needs to be born from the relief of no longer needing to explain yourself. This silence is uncomfortable at first. It's scary, it's a guilt trip, it gives that feeling that you are being selfish. But little by little, it becomes a shelter. It becomes space. It becomes a limit. And then you start to discover something precious. Your truth doesn't need an audience. She just needs you, whole, present, honest. Have you ever tried to go a whole day without music, without a cell phone, without notifications, without television? It's scary, not because the world is silent, but because your mind, without distractions, starts screaming. You remember what you avoided, you feel what you pushed off, you rediscover in the darkness of your own chest everything you swore you had overcome. And then you understand, the distraction was not leisure, it was an escape. Carl Jung said that the unconscious does not disappear, it just manifests itself in other ways. And one of the most common is precisely over-occupation. You stay busy because you are afraid to stop. Because in the silence, unanswered questions appear: is this life I have really mine? Does this relationship nourish me or just trap me? Does this version that I built represent me or consume me? These questions don't arise when you are distracted. They only appear when the mind is at peace and the soul finds space to speak. But you learn to run, filling every second, transforming even rest into performance, escaping from yourself like someone fleeing from a fire. But guess what? The fire is not outside, it's in, and as long as you keep running away, it will spread. That second silence is the moment when you stop numbing yourself, not because he wants to, but because he can no longer avoid it. Exhaustion has set in. The body can't take it. The mind collapses, the soul begs. And then, in the emptiness of a sleepless night, or in the crying that comes for no reason, or the feeling of not being here anymore, you understand that you need to stop. But really, stop. Don't just turn off notifications, but listen to what got stuck between one task and another, between one performance and another, between an ideal version and your truth. It is in the second silence that the reunion begins. It is there that you look at yourself honestly and recognize, I got lost. And that's okay, because only those who recognize that they have lost their way can choose a new path, one that is not made of noise, but of presence. There is a kind of silence that is not chosen. He arrives, without warning, no kindness. It's that moment when the world comes crashing down around you and everything that held you up ceases to exist. The job goes away, the relationship ends, health fails, the illusion collapses. And you, there in the middle, don't know who you are anymore, because everything that defined you no longer exists. Carl Jung said that the collapse of the persona may seem like a tragedy, but it is the beginning of individuation, because when you lose the papers, he realizes that he was always more than what he represented. But it hurts. It hurts because the ego resists. It hurts because the mind wants to understand. It hurts because you learn to measure yourself by achievements, by relationships, by recognition, and now there's nothing like that. Only you. No script, untitled, no mask. This is the third silence, the silence of the soul. It's the moment when the ground opens up and you fall into yourself. There is no distraction. There is no one to explain it to. There is no escape. There is only one brutal invitation. Are you ready to discover who you are without everything that defined you? This silence does not destroy you. He reveals you. This is where you see yourself naked in the deepest sense of the word, unadorned, no protection, no armor, and maybe, for the first time, you will find yourself, not as ideal, not as a projection, but as truth, wounded perhaps, tired no doubt, but real, because it is at the end of illusions that authenticity begins. You understand that you no longer have to prove anything, not prasi, not even for others, not even for this world that only values those who perform. The silence of the soul is cruel but necessary, because it breaks everything that is false, so that finally what is yours may be born. And from that place, naked and vulnerable, you can finally say, I don't know exactly who I am, but I know that from here on out, I'm going to find out. Silence brought you here, and now, without distractions, without masks, without characters, she appears. The part of you that was left in the dark, the part you hid even from yourself, the one that scares you, but it's yours. Carl Jung called this shadow everything that you don't accept in yourself, and that's why you project, repress, or run away from it. The anger you don't admit, the envy you disguise as indifference, the pride that hides behind exaggerated humility, the desire you censor, the sadness you ridicule. Everything you thought was too wrong to exist ended up there, in the shade, in the basement of your unconscious. But the problem is that what you reject does not disappear. It deforms, masks yourself, and it begins to live for you in impulses, in decisions, in repetitive patterns. You think you are in control, but you are being guided by everything you avoid feeling. And the silence reveals. He pulls the curtain, show the mirror, and you see yourself whole with the lights and the darkness, with virtues and vices, with beauty and chaos. It's painful because you wanted to be just light, just kindness, just maturity, just consciousness. But that's just another ideal, another persona. The truth is, you are human, and being human includes contradiction. The shadow is not the enemy. She just wants to be recognized, because as long as it is denied, it dominates from below. But when it is seen with courage, it can be integrated. You don't have to get rid of your anger. You need to listen to what she has to say. No need to kill your pride. You need to understand where he comes from. No need to erase the fear. You need to welcome the child that still trembles inside. This is the deepest work you can do for yourself. Bring to light what you most feared to look at, not to be perfect, but to be real, because only those who integrate their own shadow can stop projecting it onto others. Only those who accept themselves completely can finally live in peace. You weren't born trying to please. You didn't come into this world looking for approval. You just were, free, instinctive, whole. But at some point, and you may not even remember, when something broke, it may have been a harsh scolding for being too intense, a look of disappointment at having failed, or that icy silence after saying what you felt. That's how you learned that in order to be accepted, it would have to be something else. And it was there that his life was born person, the character you dressed up as to survive. Carl Jung said that the persona is a necessary social adaptation, but when confused with the real self, it becomes a prison. You became what they expected, the strong, the gentle one, the person in charge, the funny thing, the successful one, the understanding one. And it all worked. You received compliments, he gained respect, and it was accepted, but it came at a cost. You have moved away from your center. You forgot the parts that didn't fit this character. He repressed his desires, silenced pains, denied dreams. The persona became armor. But armor, no matter how pretty it looks, is made for war, and you began to live in constant combat with who you really are. You know that tiredness that never goes away? It doesn't come from rushing, comes from constant contradiction between what you show and what you feel. And the cruelest thing is that this version you created is not completely false. She is part of you, but it's not all. The problem is that you stopped accessing the rest. And now he lives compressed, content edited. You smile, but you are exhausted. You listen, but you are never heard. You take care of yourself, but no one asks you how you are. Because this version that you showed to the world is unable to ask for help. It is unable to show flaws, is unable to say, I need it too. The good news is that if you created this version, you can also start undoing it, carefully, with honesty, with truth. And this is not a destruction, it's a release. The release of being able to be multiple, inconstant, authentic. You no longer have to be the one who always gets it done. You just have to be the one who allows itself to exist in its entirety. You may even be tired of the mask, but taking it off, it hurts too. Because no matter how suffocating it is, it protects you. She gave you belonging. It gave you identity. It gave you a way to exist in the world. And now, when you start to leave that version aside, you feel a strange emptiness, as if it were unlearning how to be. It's like walking around naked in public. You feel exposed, vulnerable, wrong, because everything around you has been trained to react to your performance, not your truth. Carl Jung said that authenticity has a price, and that not everyone is willing to pay it. Because being real can make you feel more alone at first. That friendship that only existed because you were always nice fades away. That relationship that required your constant adaptation begins to fall apart. That image of perfection begins to shatter before the eyes of others. And that's where the hardest test comes in. Will you continue to be you, even when it costs you everything you achieved by being someone you were not? This question echoes in my chest like an insistent whisper. You hesitate. You think about going back, to wear the mask once more, just for today, but something inside you already knows it's not possible anymore. You have already tasted the taste of freedom, and even if it's bitter at first, it's real. She's yours. The discomfort of becoming truthful does not come from the truth itself. It comes from confronting everything that was built on lies. You start talking less, but with more presence. Accepting losing, but without losing yourself. Choosing peace over performance. And yes, some doors will close, but others that you didn't even know existed will open up. Doors that don't require emotional makeup. Relationships that don't require editing. Paths where you no longer need to explain yourself. And then, in the midst of this discomfort, you start to breathe differently. Not with the tight chest of someone who's holding back, but with the relief of someone who finally stopped pretending. There comes a time when you just stop justifying your decisions, stop shrinking to fit, stop shaping every word so as not to displease. And the most impressive thing, the world does not collapse, it just rearranges itself. Carl Jung said that liberation happens when a human being decides to be whole, even if it costs the sympathy of others. You never stop caring. You just care differently. Stop looking for validation and start looking for coherence. At first, it seems selfish. It looks like indifference. It seems you have become difficult, but actually you're just tired of betraying yourself for empty palms. Pleasing has become an addiction, and like every addiction, it starts with a real need: love, belonging, acceptance. But then it turns into a prison. You said yes when you meant no, smile when you wanted to disappear. I agreed, for fear of being rejected, and all this in the name of peace. But this peace came at a very high price, your truth, until one day you realize which is surrounded by fragile relationships, from people who like your edited version, from environments where your soul needs to wear a uniform. And then, in the midst of the silence, something changes. You start saying no, no guilt, no justification, no rehearsal, and discover that the world does not fall apart. Some walk away, others find it strange, but those who stay really stay. Your energy starts to return. You sleep better, take a deeper breath. You feel less angry because you are no longer betraying yourself. This is the freedom that no one taught you of not having to please in order to be loved. You understand that true love doesn't demand versions, and real respect is born when you have the courage to be who you are, even knowing that it makes you uncomfortable. This freedom is silent. Don't make a fuss. No stage needed. It just settles in the way you walk, in the tone of your voice, in choosing your bonds. You don't have to fit anymore. You just have to be, and that it's a revolution. After everything falls apart, what's left is not the end. It's the beginning, a beginning without a map, without outside expectations, without the burden of appearing ready. Carl Jung said that individuation is the process of becoming who you are, not who the world expects you to be. And that takes time, but it's real, it's solid, it's yours. You start slowly, saying yes only to what vibrates in your chest, moving away from what was holding you back, even if it felt right, redefining what success is, relearning to listen to your own intuition. And in the beginning, everything seems small. A leisurely morning, a conversation without defense, a project that comes from the heart, not from obligation. But these little gestures are bricks. You are rebuilding the house you are going to live in from the inside. And this time, it has windows. There is wind. There is room for pain and for joy, for silence and for laughter. You no longer need to hide your ugly parts, because he understood that they are also part of the design, and that no one is whole. With just light, relationships change. Some disappear over time, but others are born truer, lighter, because now you don't offer yourself as a polished product. You present yourself as presence, and this presence is magnetic, because in a world where everyone pretends, whoever is real becomes a shelter. You start to trust yourself more, forgiving yourself for years of self-abandonment, respecting your time, your pain, your voice. And for the first time in a long time, you feel like you're coming home, not the house others built for you, but what you, with silence, courage, and truth, are learning to rise up, small gesture by small gesture, with humility, with love, with patience. You don't want to impress anymore. You want to belong to yourself, and that is the greatest triumph anyone can achieve. A few months ago, between one meeting and another, between one screen and another, between versions of myself, I silently freaked out. It wasn't an obvious collapse. There was no screaming, no tears. It was the kind of collapse that no one sees, but that destroys you from within. I closed the computer, grabbed the keys, and left the house aimlessly. I walked down streets. I didn't even know I knew. The city was noisy, but I was silent. And then I stopped in front of an old shop window. There was a mirror, dusty, cracked in the corner, and in it, for the first time in a long time, I found myself without a function. No image, a target, no character. It was uncomfortable, because in that reflection I didn't know what I was seeing. But at the same time, I felt that that's where I really started. I sat on the sidewalk, took a deep breath, and wrote a sentence on a crumpled piece of paper that I carried in my pocket. Silence is rebuilding me. Since then, I have said no again. I started listening to my intuition again. I've started letting the world see me again, but now in the right way as I am. It's not always pretty. It's not always strong. It's not always right, but it's mine, and that's enough. If you've come this far, it's because you're also in this process. To break, to look inside, to finally hear yourself. So tell me, which of the three silences embraced you first? The one about giving up on pleasing, the one about reconnecting with your pain, or absolute silence where only you remained? Share with me in the comments. This conversation doesn't end here. It only begins when you decide not to run away anymore. If this journey touched you, if it resonated within you, I ask you, sincerely, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. Not by number, but by presence. Every video you watch to the end, every comment, every share reminds us that there are others waking up too, and that, even in silence, we recognize each other. There are other videos now appearing on the screen. They continue. This trail, each one is a door, but the key is in you. Until next time,